Welcome everyone to Becoming Us. This is a program brought to you by BetterHelp, which is a provider of virtual therapy sessions. I'm Bambi Francisco Roizen, and with me is Joy Berkheimer. She is the BetterHelp therapist who will be helping to facilitate our discussion this month. Well, this series is focused on who we're becoming in this new normal, or better said, who we become in this new normal, since this is our 5th month. And over the last 4 months, we've covered fear, anxiety, loneliness, relationships, parenting, balancing work in our life. And through those sessions, we really tried to build resilience and character by embracing these 3 goals. 1, are we looking inward? Are we trying to change ourselves? We live in such an anxious time right now, a time of uncertainty. And sometimes we find ourselves trying to change others or change the world. But first, before we try to change the world, are we trying to change ourselves? And as we try to change ourselves, are we finding joy in the present? That's been a big theme. Are we finding joy in the present? We can't just fast forward through bad times. We actually have to sit sometimes in an uncomfortable place, because when we do, or when we're able to actually find joy, we're exercising gratitude. You can't have gratitude, you can't be grateful about things and not be joyful. So that's one of the things you're doing when you're finding joy in the present. But this, at the same time, you're probably letting go of some anger. You're probably letting go of anger toward yourself or maybe other people. And in that sense, you're exercising forgiveness. And as we try to be more grateful and forgiving, what we're actually doing is releasing the neurotransmitter dopamine and the hormone serotonin. And when we're filled up with dopamine and serotonin, well, we're filled up with a sense of peace. So once we are finding joy in the present, how are we purposeful? Many of you know that I love the movie Lord of the Rings, and I love when Gandalf says, all we have to decide is what to do with the time given to us. So what are we doing with the time given to us? How are we being purposeful? Well, that brings us to this month, which is purpose. And the definition for purpose is the reason for which something is done. And I recently wrote a book, and I suggested that purpose is a puzzle piece. Puzzle pieces have a reason. Puzzle pieces have a raison d'etre, a reason for being. And this is what I said in my book. Everyone is different, and yet we complement one another like the pieces of a puzzle. We're not entirely sure what our piece is. We might not even know where it fits in the grand scheme. We definitely might not like the piece we're next to, but the puzzle remains, and our role is indelible. We're all here for a reason, and without each of us, the puzzle is incomplete. So as you watch this video, as we do every time we start these sessions, look and reflect on these major events that have changed culture, changed society, changed you during this time, and think about, have you figured out what your puzzle piece is? Has COVID helped you to embrace your puzzle piece? Well, it looks like I think you missed that video, and I'm sorry about that. It's such a good video to see, but at the very end, there is a slide that says, "In this new normal, who do we become?" And I think knowing your purpose is one way of knowing who you're going to become or who you are. But do you know what that purpose is? Do you know what that puzzle piece is? Well, I'll give you a couple of words: Nerf wars. So my husband and I, earlier this week, we told our son, he's 8 years old and he's all about Nerf wars, and we told him that he could have a mega Nerf war battle. And he was so excited about having this Nerf war that he spent over an hour just trying to organize his bullets, his guns, his canteens, and his binoculars and all the other sundries that go with having a Nerf war. And he even put aside his little army outfit and he laid it out with his helmet because he was all ready to have this mega Nerf war with the family. And he spent an hour doing this and organizing his stuff. And my husband said to me, Peanut, we call him Peanut, he really loves the preparation. He really loves the process. And it reminded me that when we do love the process, when we enjoy the preparation, that's where we find our purpose. And I'll give you another example. Dave Chappelle, probably one of the greatest comedians of our time, extremely astute about identifying the ironies of the human condition. Monty Python called him a stand-up philosopher, or in Monty Python's words, he's a stand-up philosopher. Well, he was in an interview and someone asked him, "What is your purpose, or how do you find meaning?" And he said, "Well, you know what? I don't link my self-esteem to, or self-worth to work," meaning he doesn't really care what other people say about what he's doing. He said, "The beauty is in the intent. It's in the long, long walk toward the stage." I mean, what a visual, the long, long walk towards the stage. And that means that is the process. That is the preparation. So when you find yourself embracing the process, that's probably where you'll find your purpose. And now Joy is going to take this one step further with her presentation. It's a fantastic presentation. I'm really looking forward to it. But before I hand this over to Joy, I want to thank BetterHelp, which is supporting this service for so many professionals. And I also want to remind you that for anybody here on this call, you also can have a BetterHelp trial. So I would definitely do that. Give yourself the gift of these therapy sessions, especially now during this time when we're living in such anxious and uncertain times. So BetterHelp has thousands of therapists across the country that can meet your personal needs. They're also more affordable than an in-person therapist with added benefits. So more interaction, more convenience, and you also have access to group discussions. So give a gift of BetterHelp to yourself, give a gift of BetterHelp to your friends and family. So with that, I want to hand this over to Joy, and she's going to kick us off with her presentation. Joy, take it away.
Okay. Okay. Hopefully everyone can hear me. I think I have the mic on. Hello. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are logging in from. I heard someone say 3 o'clock and I heard someone else say 11 o'clock. So good morning, good afternoon. So I will introduce myself quickly before I get into what we are talking about today. And Bambi, thank you so much for having me on today to share with you guys in your group about purpose. So I am one of over 8,000 therapists on the BetterHelp platform, but we each also have our own practice. We work with BetterHelp. So I have a practice in Boca Raton, Florida, and I talk a lot in my practice about this idea of purpose and meaning because the basis of my practice is positive psychology. So I don't know if anyone has heard of positive psychology, but I love it because it is something where we're not just looking at kind of the disorders or the dysfunctions and the pathology of ourselves, but we're also looking at our strengths and our gifts, our beauty, which I'm going to talk about also aligns a lot with our purpose, understanding who we are, not just understanding what we struggle with, but understanding how we can power through different times like this. Now, I wasn't able to see the whole video, but I did get a picture. I got an idea of what the video was about. And I saw like a coming together of everyone on there. And because of what it was talking about, I also know that I saw one of the pictures, what was it, World War II, I believe. And so they all looked like they had their arms like together, and they looked like they had purpose, they had meaning, and they had strength, right? This is a situation where people are kind of going through the drudges. Things are difficult, but it is a mindset. And even though Dave Chappelle may not align himself with like his value with his work, I think we all align a part of our value with our purpose and our meaning and what it means to show up in this world, and like, who are we? How are we showing up in the world? So becoming us purpose, I think, is super significant for us to process and think about. So let me go ahead and get started with some of the things that I'd like to share about purpose, especially now. So we can find ourselves lost, with what our purpose is. I work with a lot of people who will say they had purpose at one point in time, but they lost it, or they feel like they've already, gotten into a passion and they're done with that passion and they don't know what to do next, or maybe they've never been able to attach to purpose. But you guys, and a lot of people who are entrepreneurs, people who are go-getters, people who are creatives, a lot of times do have an idea of their purpose. But I feel like right now, this is a time period that has shaken a lot of us at the core. We thought we knew exactly where we were going, what we were pushing for, what we were getting up in the morning for. But at this point in time, a pandemic, for pretty much all of us here, we've never in our lifetime experienced something like this, where we've had some of our power taken away. We've had a heightened amount of fear put in front of us that is keeping us in place. We don't know what's going to happen next, right? So how do you live out your purpose if your purpose was actually your career, your job that you can no longer do because of being on quarantine? How do you show up in the world when your showing up was directly connecting to people, but we can't be with people? We can't be in their presence, right? So this could be something that was very difficult for us to refigure out. I was someone who was very blessed and lucky. I didn't know how it was going to go, but BetterHelp does offer therapy online. So all the people that we were seeing online, we could continue to do so safely. But I was also seeing people in person. So how was that going to work for me for this whole life that was built? How could I really continue to connect to people? And not just the how, but what. So it was very interesting to me that so many things kind of came up at one time. It wasn't just quarantine, but I'm sure you guys are familiar with like things that happen with a whole movement, right? We've always had a movement in terms of like marginalized populations and abuse and things like that have happened. But because we've been on quarantine, everything has been so hyper focused on what we're lacking. It's been very hyper focused on a lot of pain that's been bubbling for quite some time. So with that, I know a lot of people in a lot of our communities felt like, well, should my purpose even be this thing that maybe is actually frivolous in the middle of all this pain? Should I be focused on this now? Should I be pouring in my effort and my time in this area? Is that something that really aligns with my values? This has been a time that has really made us have to rethink a lot of what is important to us and how we want to continue to move forward. So I know this is something that you all were probably struggling with as well, because I think everybody has. And I can say, as somebody in a therapy practice, I've never been as full as I am now because of everybody feeling like they have lost their sense of meaning by feeling so kind of locked in, and then feeling so separated because a lot of things that have also happened have been very divisive, right? So this is a big period of transition and turmoil, but I do know that it is so important for us to understand this sense of purpose. I do a presentation on the 5 building blocks of happiness. I actually saw that one of the therapists mentioned some of those concepts here as well, but one of the building blocks of happiness based off of positive psychology is meaning. It's meaning or purpose, right? So this is something that is so pivotal to our emotional well-being, our spiritual well-being, our mental health. All those things are things that we always want to make sure that we're taken care of. And if we don't feel like we have a reason for being, if there isn't a fire under us or something that we're moving towards, we can start to experience things like feeling depressed, feeling very anxious, feeling just very lost. So what is purpose really? So this is something that I love, and I found Pablo Picasso. So the meaning of life is to find your gift, and the purpose of your life is to give it away, okay? So if we go back to what I was talking about in terms of positive psychology, helping us identify our gifts and our strengths, our superpowers, so to speak, this is something that I think is so important for you to be able to identify what comes easy to you, what puts you in the state of flow, what makes you feel empowered. Because I think that once you figure that out, if you are curious about what your purpose is, then you should know that it's more than likely aligned with the things that are very natural for you. Apparently we have about 24 character strengths. All of us have 24 character strengths, but we have them at different levels. So there is an assessment that you can take. If you guys want to take it, it's called the Bia Strength Survey. This will assess for your top 5 strengths. So I say that to say, know what you have, know what's really easy. Humor is actually one of the strengths. So I imagine that Dave Chappelle's, one of his top strengths is probably humor. So when you identify these things and you're trying to figure out, well, where do I go now? Like, what are my powers that I can fit into this passion very easily? And with the gifts that I have, who do I serve very easily? Who needs this thing from me? Who needs my creativity, my leadership, my humility, spirituality, gratitude? All these things are some of our character strengths. So once you figure that out, you can flow a little bit better into that space of figuring out where you can be, no matter what's happening around us, right? Identifying self is something that cannot be taken away once you understand it. And I think that's so important, again, because of everything we're going through. We're changing leadership right now. Things are coming to the surface that have been pushed down for so long. People are trying to re-identify their truth about themselves. And then there's a lot of messaging out there about who someone is and who they aren't, who you're supposed to be, how you're supposed to be, what you're supposed to support. But at the end of the day, if you understand these things about you, like your core gifts and beauties about you, no one can redirect you from that, no matter how much you're quarantined, no matter how much we are losing things around us. This is something that we do not lose. Okay, so how has this journey redirecting your purpose changed you? So this is something that we can talk about a little bit later, but I want you guys to kind of think about that a little bit. How this is kind of how having to redirect your purpose, how having to be more creative or actually just enact some of the strengths that we haven't before, how has it changed you? One of the things that I'll say it has done for me since the pandemic has happened, I've seen it time and time again, where I've had clients come in and myself, where we thought we were going to be really strong in this area, we're no longer able to do that. So it's actually let us know how resilient we are. And it's made us even more resilient. Like once I know that I'm capable of managing these things, if I look back and I say, well, I manage this and this and this, it actually prompts me to want to continue to manage things. It prompts me to want to attack more goals and to feel that I am more limitless than I ever thought I was, right? So an abundance mindset, understanding that we have so much available to us is something that is also really important when we are moving forward in our purpose. We want to move forward in a space feeling like this is something that I have motivation to do, that I am meant to do, and I can do it. You want to feel capable of doing the things that you are aligned with, right? So if you don't know that you're resilient, I'm here to tell you that you are. The fact that you're even here today, the fact that you guys are sane and you're not pulling out your hair and you are able to give time to this self-discovery for yourself and give time to discussion lets me know that you are able to move through very difficult times and very difficult periods. Everyone cannot be here, and everyone cannot even manage cutting out time for themselves for something like this. So, and how has the shift or loss of your purpose changed your relationships? So again, going back to kind of identifying self with purpose, I think that a lot of times we identify like our passion and our purpose so much with ourselves that that is the way that we believe that others see us, through what it is that we do, through what it is that we're excited about. So if your purpose has had to change, has that changed your relationships? So this is something, again, I want you guys to kind of reflect upon, and maybe we can talk about it a little bit later. I am, licensed marriage and family therapist. So I actually, I'm all about relationships. I love looking at the way that our dynamics change when we connect with people, depending on how we're feeling, depending on what's going on in the world, and what's going on with our partners and our family. We shift a lot, right? So purpose is going to be one of those things also that has us changing. If your purpose was to be a leader in something and you're no longer able to be a leader or serve that purpose, does it change your value in your relationship? Do you believe that it changes how people will accept you or love you? Do you feel like you're not going to have any significance to somebody because you're no longer serving a particular purpose? Or are you able to evolve in another way and feel okay that you'll be accepted in a different type of purpose and a different type of passion? So something to think about. So as the world evolves around us, we evolve, and so do our passions and our purpose and our meaning. I think that a lot of people that I work with do get stuck on this one purpose that we have. And I did hear Bambi talk about intentions, right? So I talk about this, like we can have this overarching purpose that we feel that we have. But what I like to do, even though I feel like I do know my purpose, is I like to set an intention for myself every day. I like to do this in small bits. So that means for me, when I get up in the morning, before I open my eyes, before I meditate, before I walk the dog, or let anybody else know that I'm awake, I have a conversation with myself about my intentions. Like, Joy, what's your intention today? So maybe my intention today is to smile at everyone I see. Maybe my intention today is to give a compliment to everyone, to be a better listener, to talk, less and listen more. Maybe my intention is just to affect a very small positive change for somebody else. And me living in that intention is still me living in my purpose. Because again, if our purpose is to identify our gift and to give it away to someone else, that is ultimately the biggest, most important thing in terms of affecting change for other people. I believe that that's why we are on this planet. It doesn't have to be specific to one thing. The example that I always love to use, and I've seen it happen, what if I set my intention that I'm going to smile at everyone today? If I go to the grocery store in a time where we weren't wearing a mask, or I have a clear mask, right? And I'm smiling at everyone because that was my intention to show up as my best self today, right? So I smile at everyone and I see a guy across the aisles and I make eye contact and I smile with him and I keep going. We have no idea if this person that I just smiled at has not been looked at, talked to, or touched in the last 3 months. And they were starting to believe that they did not exist, that they did not matter, that they had no meaning, that there was nothing about them that was important, and they no longer wish to be here. You have no idea how you shift things for someone just by you showing up in your intention, just by you exuding your energy and having your gift and giving, permission to yourself to be that self in that purpose, in that meaning. You allow that energy to spread to other people as well. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and open it up, Bambi, for everyone else. If you guys have any questions, comments, and I will stop sharing.
I told everyone she was going to have a fantastic presentation, and you covered so much. Firstly, what comes to you easily. So that's a question we can ask everyone. How has your purpose shifted and how has that changed relationships? But also, how are we being intentional or purposeful? And you talked about smiling at someone even. And what that does is that releases oxytocin. And if anybody knows what oxytocin is, it's the love hormone. And so it makes you feel all, cuddly and warm inside. And that's a nice thing to share to others. So with others. And so let's open this discussion up. We have some new folks on here, and I would love to bring them on. But I always ask Don to give his thoughts as well, because Don always has a nice way of sort of opening this up as well. So Don, do you have any thoughts on Joy's presentation? Oh, okay.
Joy, wonderful job. Thank you for sharing some really great thoughts. Bambi, thanks for having me. Gosh, where to begin? There's so much. You know, when I think of the most recent thing you shared, one of the last things about a smile, I'm a firm believer in that. I have a 6-year-old grandson, and we spend a lot of time together. And when we do, one of the things that I've taught him was what I was taught, which is you smile and you say hello to everybody. And the responses that people are giving, especially over the last 6 or 7 months during this crazy time, it's just amazing to see people come, just kind of melt before their eyes and just engage in ways that, you know, you just see the childlike qualities in them. And it's really a beautiful thing to see. And then when I think of, you know, you mentioned you don't know the last time someone's been hugged or touched or whatever in the last 3 months. Well, think about this. One of my heroes is Jesus, and he was the one who went out and he touched the unclean woman. He touched the leper when no one else in all of society would. And when I think of that, I think, okay, so when I'm walking down the street and I see a homeless man or a homeless woman, do I just maybe give him some food or maybe some money? How about a hug? And so when you do that, it's amazing the response you get from the homeless person. It's amazing the response you get from the people who happen to be around you. So I give you a lot of credit in bringing that point up, because people today, we all are desperate for human touch. And it's just one of the most wonderful gifts we have. So I think that's a purpose that we all have, whether we recognize it or not. So I'll take it off from there.
So that.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Joy. Yes.
Okay, yeah. When you're talking about human touch, you know, I commend you, Don, for just hugging anybody. It's a lot for me. I'm a hugger of the people that I'm very close to, and I've actually gotten much better than that. Even though I'm a therapist, I still have my things, and I'm getting better at that. But I know how good it feels, and I know the value of it. But we were actually recently having a discussion about you know, the projects they have with nurses and babies, and how, like, you know, babies who are preemies or babies that are like in the NICU, how the nurses, it's some of their jobs, or maybe just volunteers, not even nurses, are just to go in and hold the babies, because it's such an innate thing that we need from a very, very early time to have that human connection. You know, I don't know if you guys identify with this, if you want to look at it spiritually, energetically, but we definitely exchange something very amazing just by being in the vicinity of someone, but definitely by having that energy and actually touching another person. So, yeah.
What I wanted to say was, during this time of COVID, it's really hard to show your smile because of the mask, and we're not exactly hugging everyone, but I do have a hug story. This is when I was living in New York, and I went into the subway, and there was this homeless guy who was sitting by himself. And everybody, well, he came in and he sat down, and everyone moved to the other end of the cart. And I sat in front of him, and I went and I hugged him. And I don't know why, I just wanted to hug him. I felt he needed a hug. I then walked out, got to my stop. He followed me, and I thought, oh no, what did I do? Now I have this guy following me. And he came up to me and he threw something at me. And I picked it up, and it was this little toy, like rubber ducky. And I was like, oh my goodness, he gave me something. He gave me a gift. He was so happy. And I threw the rubber ducky away. I was like, this is gross, but I don't know where this duck's been. But it just reminded me that, yeah, that felt really good. That hug felt for him, I'm sure. Hopefully, clearly it felt good for him. So I want to bring in, I know Kurt wanted to share, I know Jake wanted to share, and Chris, but, you know, the question to you guys are, you know, have have you found your purpose during this time? What's come easy to you during COVID? How has it changed your relationship? So any of you guys want to share? Since Jake, I see you, so I'm going to pick on you.
Well, thank you. Always been an easy pick for other people. So my name is Jake Diner. I'm the CEO of Fertility Cloud. We are a telemedicine fertility clinic. So it's perhaps you didn't ask me, but I think that I want to share the story of our company and how we, through each of us, of the founders, had the pretty painful IVF or fertility story. We start thinking about how can we help women and men and couples become parents. And as we're planning the company, we keep thinking, well, what can we do better to make the service accessible and affordable? And my partners there are REIs, they're reproductive endocrinologists, so they've gone through a lot of IVF procedures, and they keep telling me, look, the biggest problem here is that we have clinics, and clinics are very expensive, therefore they charge a lot of money. And the clinics are very scarce, and they're not easy to be accessed by people, even if you do have the money. So we start thinking, well, maybe if we took the doctors out of the clinics and figure out there are some procedures that don't require actually be in person there. And mind you, we're talking late 2019. So as we put the company together, as we obtain all the licenses, as we finally found a company that would sell us insurance, malpractice insurance, it's crazy. Guess what happened? COVID happened. So we are in very beginning of the lockdown, and we coming out to the market and saying, hey guys, anybody having problem getting pregnant? We have doctors who will see you using telemedicine, right? They can talk to you and they can help you overcome a lot of fears and a lot of unknowns, because a lot of IVF procedures got postponed. And for anyone who ever had to go through this, understand that every month counts. It's not some indefinite thing that if I don't do it today, I'll do it tomorrow. So it's in a way, when we were building the company, we all of a sudden had that thing coming on us, which said lockdown, total lockdown. So everybody sitting home, and we were hoping they would make babies. That sounds funny. And as we were building out the awareness of what we do and building awareness how we can help, we start seeing that the people start coming down with COVID. So, and the employees in my companies and the customers who were talking to us said, look, I've been diagnosed, what should I do? And from where I see it, I constantly see the purpose, my personal purpose is to help others. I derive the most satisfaction is when I get a note, I don't need your service anymore. I have a positive result, which means you're pregnant, right? So for me, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, is to help other people to become parents. And for my family personally, the joy of parenthood, it's been long waited, very, very expensive journey, but the most satisfying. I do have a 6-year-old daughter who constantly grills me on everything, and that's probably the biggest challenge I have, is to figure out how to answer her questions. And at the same time, we're trying to get the word of encouragement to literally millions of women who either cannot afford or cannot access the doctors and the knowledge that the medical professional have to get the question why they cannot get pregnant. So I think that with the everything that is going on around us, what helps me to keep the sanity is the laser focus on what is the purpose for me. And purpose for me is to essentially, beyond the families, the professional, is to lose customers. I want to lose my customers, which means they got pregnant. That means they don't need my services anymore. So in our office, when we had an office, we were pushed home, we agreed that we're going to build the wall with the stars. We're going to build the wall with the stars for everyone who gets pregnant. And the more the stars, the better our job is. And whenever I feel that, like, why am I here? Why am I still doing it? It's like, that's the wall. I want to go back to my wall and said, like, when we started here, we had one person who entrusted their care to our hands. And look at, we ran out of time, we ran out of space. So that's what kind of drives me, is I want to build my wall. I want to build the wall of the stars and do it all around the office. So it should close the loop. That's it. That's all I have to say.
Joy, you're not there.
Okay, I'm muted. I love that. I don't have gold stars for my clients, but that I love that. And I guess it's the same thing, right? You come to therapy and we have different types of therapy. And, a long time ago it was Freudian therapy and you were in therapy for the rest of your life. But for me, when I know that somebody has been empowered, someone has they feel good about making their own decisions and they don't have to rely on me all the time. I know that I serve my purpose. I know that I gave you the gift of you, right? You're giving the gift of life, right? And I'm giving the gift of understanding of self. So I totally get that. That completely lines up with purpose. Yeah.
Remember the movie Good Will Hunting? Remember that movie Ben Affleck said, what brights up my day? I want to come to your house and I don't want to see you here. I want to see you gone to a better future, right? So this is kind of the same thing. I want to do the most I can to help others. And when they don't need me, my job is done. That's it. So that's what you have in your heart.
Well, then after they're with you, then they go to Tammy. I think Tammy's all about your purpose there. Right, Tammy?
Is that college savings, like financial services?
No.
I appreciate everything that you had to say, Jake. So I'm kind of on the other end where I work in a pregnancy crisis center where the women were getting pregnant like crazy during COVID. But they were afraid because there was not research or, what do you do? What are the complications? What if you do get COVID? What if your baby gets COVID? What do I do? And so most of my clients are thinking about having an abortion. And so my job is, I know, because we're on opposite pages, right, Jake? And so my job is to alleviate their fears, educate them. I'm a nurse advocate. And also I do ultrasound. So just helping them and guiding them to truth and letting them know, hey, you know what, it's going to be okay. There's a lot of resources out there to help you, and it's going to be okay. And so I love helping people as well.
I see, Gail, I know you might head out early, so did you want to jump in?
Sure. Hey, everybody. So thank you, Joy. That was incredible what you shared. Really, really good. I was able to connect to it a lot. I felt like for a while, I lost my purpose, the inability to connect with people face to face. I think after a while really started to affect me. I teach dance, so it's face to face, and I'm a consultant, and that's face to face. I teach people the Bible, so my whole life is about face to face things. So not having that connection really started weighing on me, and I told Don I started struggling with bouts of depression, which is not me. I have anxiety, but depression is not a thing for me. So I feel like for a while I've lost my creativity and just got lost with my purpose. And then I did a photo shoot with my photographer, who's a very young lady. And at the end of the photo shoot, she had to stop and tell me she just recently started 2 businesses, and she's been doing some different endeavors, exciting endeavors in her life. And she said to me, she said, I just want to let you know the reason why I was able to start this and discover that this is what I wanted to do is because of you. And she really helped me to remember that part of my gift and part of my purpose is to help draw out of young women what's already inside of them, what God has already instilled in them, but have not yet tapped into, or don't know how to connect to, or maybe somebody has told them different, so they stopped believing in themselves. And so that's my gift, and that's my purpose. I'm really good with drawing people's gifts out of them. So my photographer saying that to me was like really eye-opening. It was really just like a rebirth for me, to help me remember who I am and to help me remember, oh yeah, that's what makes me want to get up in the morning. That's what brings me joy. That's what gives me energy. And so that was, for me, that was just a game changer when you're talking about purpose and repurposing. And with COVID and quarantine, how has that changed? Like, I got distracted for a little while, but now it's like, oh no. I know what I'm put here for. And it's just giving me that energy back. And as far as somebody talking about intention, really, it reminded me of the intention that I want to have when I interact with people, whether virtually or, over the phone or whatever, or being in the grocery store. I still make attempts to have some type of connection with people, because like you said, you never know what other people are going through. You never know who is hanging on by a thread. And if I'm intentional, you never know who I can touch, because I had no idea I was touching that young lady, my photographer, in the ways that I did. I had no idea. I was just being myself. I was just interacting with people the way I love to interact with people. And little did I know I caused a whole shift for this young lady's life because of just me being me. So anyway, that's what I wanted to share. And I appreciate being here. I have to leave and pick up my son, so I don't want to appear rude if I disconnect, but nice to see all of you.
Joy, Joy.
Can you hear me now? Okay. I know you have to go. Gail, the fact that you were talking about dancing and energy and movement, I know that had to be very difficult to pretty much take all that energy that goes through our bodies when we're using it for movement like that. And then like, nope, you need to sit on that. And that's something that also gets shared with other people. So that's that exchange in a really big way. So I talked about that kind of getting used to how we show up in our purpose. And you've probably, gotten really good at this craft, and it comes so easy. If that's a gift for you, it's something that everyone can't do. And I know that when it really connects to your soul, it's like you have to do it that way. So although this young lady was somebody who learned from you and you were just showing up as yourself, and she got something from that, she kind of paid it forward or backward, so to speak. And she was showing up with her gifts of being truthful, her gifts of being somebody who's going to be a go-getter, who's getting what she wants, and is reminding you of all that energy that you have in you. And that even just by standing there and letting someone capture your image is something that is so powerful, right? So she was being powerful, you're being powerful, but that's setting that intention just to show up as my best self, whatever that is. It's going to be different on Tuesday than it is on Thursday based off of the circumstances and what I have available. But just by having that intention of showing up as your best self is so powerful.
I think Ricardo said he wanted to share. Thanks, Gail.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. Thanks, Gail. Thanks, Joy, for the information there. I really just wanted to kind of give you guys a little bit more of my insights. I just kind of give you a background. I'm the founder of Start Day One. It's a nonprofit foundation for mental health and suicide prevention. And one of the things I discuss is purpose. Purpose, why do we want that, right? It's because without purpose, it's kind of like your why. Everything that you do is just really an extension of yourself. But you have to figure out, like, how do you develop the purpose? A lot of people don't know. The good thing about purpose is because as people, we kind of go away from negative, right? And we also, basically, we go towards pleasure and avoid pain, right? Everyone kind of knows this. What's good with purpose is that it doesn't matter. It doesn't care about, the pain or pleasure. That's why it's so important. That's why you persevere. You look at Elon Musk because of his purpose. He was ready to lose all his money for his sense of purpose. So that's the important part of purpose. You have to know when you're trying to develop a purpose, it's always a verb. It can't be a noun. You can never say, I want to be this. That's just a noun. You'll see that a lot of mission statements are built this way, because a mission statement is more a purpose for a startup. basically a purpose for a personal purpose, just your own mission statement. And you have to figure it out with a verb. It's never going to be a noun. To be, no one says to be the best social network. That's what Facebook could have said that, but that's very finite, right? So what they say is to connect people. So that's always going to keep going, pandemic or not. And that's what purpose does. Doesn't matter if there's a pandemic or not. You kind of go through. So remember, when you come up with your purpose, it has to be a verb. Also, another thing is that a purpose is never personal for yourself. I mean, a purpose is always to benefit other people. Look at every company that you have. It's not to be the best social network, to be the best this. It's always to serve others in some way, shape, or form. So for your own personal purpose too, it can be, I want to be the best parent. That's a noun. And that's just for you. I want to, for example, like Jake, it was great purpose to help people become parents. That's big. For Gail, it was to enhance people's lives through dancing. That's a good purpose because that's something with or without a pandemic. What can you do? There's a pandemic going on. Well, if it's to help people become parents, well, he's not going to stop because he can't go out. He just figures out how he can connect on Zoom, how can he educate them and all that stuff. So the purpose keeps going, doesn't matter what obstacles that you have there. And what's good with purpose, it gives you a sort of a future thinking. When you have a sense of purpose, you have an idea of what your future life is, because people don't get depressed because of what they can see from the past or even their present. It's actually what they can't see about their future. And so purpose, what that does is purpose keeps going. It's very infinite. That's really the biggest difference of that, because that's your why. I actually like Joy's first slide where it has those directional things. When I tell people who are lost, the first question is, I picture them driving a car. You don't just, when people get lost in a car, you don't place it in park and go, I'm lost, and then stay there, right? What you end up doing is trying to figure out where are you trying to go? So that's always my question. Well, where are you trying to go? Because that's your purpose. It's the why you're going in the first place. Purpose is really, why are you in a car in the first place? I'm trying to go to California to celebrate Thanksgiving with my parents. It has to be very specific. And people don't understand that purpose gives you that kind of, it's the compass, not necessarily the directions. It's just the compass, where you're trying, what turns you're going to make, what you're going to do. So when you're in a car, when you get lost, you go to a therapist if you need directions, right? But if it's not that, sometimes you come through these obstacles. So purpose kind of tells you like, well, why are you trying to go? Whether there's an accident in the front, you don't all of a sudden put it in park. You figure out how you're going to get there because you have to, right? I want to spend Thanksgiving with my family, so I have to go. That's why I'm going. So what happens is, whether there's an obstacle in the way when you're in traffic and stuff like that, you reroute just like your GPS says, but you don't typically put it in park. And so when you're going there, because after the purpose, it's really about fixing your perspectives, because your perspectives either are going to be a threat or a benefit to your sense of purpose. And you know which ones those are. So because the reason it's so important to figure out your perspectives and really keep that in line with your purpose, because all of your decisions follow your perspectives, all of it. And so that's really just my kind of thing with purpose, just so people know how to develop it. And, it's not about just developing meaning. It's really, instead of like, what's the meaning of life? Because that's where people trying to answer this really huge question, but really it's what makes your life meaningful. So that's really what you want to ask yourself.
Ricardo, I liked what you said when you were talking about like people get depressed because of what they can't see, right? And you were talking about like purpose and kind of having an understanding of why I'm doing this and where I'm going, because I'm trying to get to that good stuffing on Thanksgiving. Like that's my purpose in life. So, but it's true when I have anyone who's trying to figure out like, why do I need to have purpose so bad? It's because I need to have a vision of what the possibilities of my life are, because I need the opposite of stuckness. That's what it is. That's what that vision is for. I need to understand that there is something more than this, even though this, wherever you are, may not be bad, but as human beings, that's how we are. That's how we're built. Even when we meet a goal, we want another one. We're like, that felt good for a moment, but now I want another one and another one. And purpose drives that, right? Like purpose is such an important thing for creating that big vision. So I love that you said that, because it is very much connected to our mental health and our sense of joy. So we need that for our joy.
Yeah, Ricardo, I liked what you said about serving other people, or purpose, and thinking about how we serve other people. And I think Gail was saying that too. And I think also Gail mentioned that she kind of lost her purpose. So this is a question for everyone here. Sometimes due to fear, and I'm not quite sure what was for Gail. Maybe it was fear. Sometimes it's low self-esteem. We kind of lose our purpose. We start something and then we don't complete it. So I'm curious, did anyone lose their purpose or start a project and then just drop it? And then maybe after a few days, or maybe even after years, went back to it and found it and completed it? Mark?
I was just thinking, I really love the way you phrased that, Joy, earlier about your purposes, helping other people. I like that Pablo Picasso quote you put up. I took a picture of it. And I was thinking maybe a little bit what you were talking about, Bambi, or asking about. So I used to do a lot of volunteer work. And then I had this thing called Children that came up. And they kept me busy for, we got 4 kids. And it's just, and my purpose is very much tied up with them, as it is, I think, for any parent. But as my kids now are starting to leave the house, I've got my second oldest is now off at college. I'm actually looking forward to getting back and doing some sort of work that helps people other than my kids or other than my family. So I've just started to reach out to do volunteer work. Of course, unfortunately, that all is occurring during COVID, and it's kind of hard to do volunteer work at there's 2 local places I wanted to join. I reached out to them, but everything's virtual now, so there's just less opportunity. But anyway, I just think, I don't think that's exactly what you're asking, Bambi, but yeah, I sort of thought about that. Like it's as I go through this transition and move beyond kids, I'm looking forward to finding more purpose beyond just my own family, finding more purpose. And anyway, thanks, Joy, I enjoyed your presentation.
Joy, you're muted again. You should probably stay unmuted, Joy.
You think so? I got a lot going on. I have children and dogs and all types of stuff, but I know I am glad that you, the Pablo Picasso quote, I'm glad that you did attach to that, because I love that. That actually was meaningful to me when I found it. And so I wanted to share it with everybody else, being able to kind of connect what it is that comes naturally to us to our purpose, especially when we're getting lost. But Bambi, you had asked the question about, was there something like, a purpose that you felt like we had lost and we'd given up? What actually happened for me during the pandemic is I knew I wanted to be able to serve my population in a very direct way. And I've been working on writing a book, and, life got in the way. But what actually happened in terms of having to repurpose things, having to maneuver our energy in a different way, because we were locked down and we were just in the house with not much to do, it actually reignited me to attach to my motivation, to this passion, and finish my book. And so that was something that even during a pandemic was available to people. Like I can make that available. So it's funny how the world can kind of change where we think we're supposed to be. And maybe these things happen because we're supposed to be moved in a different way to show up with our passion and our purpose differently, to affect change in a bigger way than before. So.
Joy, you and I have the same intent here. I just like Mark, kids got in the way. It's sort of like what Ricardo said, your purpose is like, you're in it for the long haul. However, how much pain you have to go through, and kids sometimes are painful. You have to go through. And I think most everyone here, they're parents. So we all understand the pain that we go through. We're raising our children, but I did too. I had, I have this box, and it has book proposal, and my husband sort of kind of makes fun of me because I have these book proposals and ideas. But then with COVID, I actually was able to finish my book. So I was actually able to finally complete that and make that my purpose. And now I'm back to my kids as a purpose. So want to ask the question of maybe a purpose that has changed a relationship, or a new purpose that has changed our relationship. Don?
Yeah, so interesting. As you guys are sharing about your purpose, maybe, you're leaving a purpose and getting back to it. Sometimes you just leave a purpose and never get back to it, or you change your purpose. And back when I was 25 years old, my girlfriend at the time, she was an opera singer, very, very well-to-do opera singer in New York City. And she went away for a week. And during that week, I actually studied the Bible. And so the way I was living before she went away to the way we were going to be living our relationship going forward, when I shared it with her, I said, so the way, things that are important to me now that weren't important to me, she said, well, that's not important to me. And so that was the end of our relationship, just like that. And that was the last day I saw her for about 6 years. And we were in a small community, being a former actor in New York City, but it was what I needed not to see her for a little bit to kind of get through it. But sometimes relationships change as a result of purpose. And that in that case, it was not a good one. And I could talk about the opposite end of the coin, where the person that I met that week is still one of my best friends, and we still communicate. We help each other out in life in many, many different ways. And it wasn't just one person, it's actually a handful that I still keep in touch with from my New York City days back 30 years ago. So changing a purpose will change relationships. Absolutely. If it's a real change in purpose.
I can see the opposite as well in terms of relationships, how your relationships can actually serve a purpose for you, right? The way that someone connects with you. Because I do believe that we are a reflection of our relationships, meaning the way that you treat me, you talk to me, the things that you see in me that maybe I do not see in myself. Oftentimes that person in a relationship is able to reflect that back to you. Maybe you didn't even realize the purpose you have, or the gift you have, or the passion you have. And because it's possible when your girlfriend came back, maybe you were going to talk to her about the Bible, and she was going to realize like that's why you were in her life, to ignite her with that and stay for. But that didn't happen. But there's other people that we do that for. Or maybe being with her was something that actually let you know there's some things that don't jive, and I know the difference. Like I know what it's like when I'm with her, and I know what it's like when I'm on my own and I'm like devoted to this. I know the difference in the feeling. And if I wouldn't know the difference, if I wasn't with this person, I wouldn't maybe know what I was missing. And when you are doing things that are igniting you, getting you closer to your spirituality, to whatever is the best parts of you, then you are better able to serve that purpose, to give that gift to everybody else. So all of it is kind of intertwined with relationships, whether or not it changes your relationship or the relationship changes you and your purpose.
So we talked a lot about changing purpose, and I think Mark talked about now that his kids are in college, now his purpose is hopefully getting back and doing some more volunteer work. So, and so we have different seasons in our life, I think, and different purpose in those. What do you think, for everybody here, what is the constant purpose? Anyone wants to share?
When you say the constant purpose, do you mean for all of us or individually? Just so I can clarify for everybody.
Oh, individually, yes.
Okay.
Definitely individually. I think, what is the one constant that sort of remains? Because I'm done with my book. Joy, you're done with your book, and that's not our purpose unless another book, which, yes, we do have another book coming. But
I can share mine.
Yeah.
Yes, so I actually ended up developing it because of my apparel company. It was to basically, this is what I'm trying to do for others also. It's to live life without regret and accept challenges that are worth the risk. So that is always going to happen. And it's funny because I came up with it. So this is my clothing line. It's called Phuket Clothing. So the story behind this, everyone knows to live life to the fullest, right? But it's impossible. It's actually human nature to take life for granted. That's why we complain on Mondays, traffic, weather. No one is immune to it. So what I learned was like, everyone knows this concept, but then why isn't it, why isn't anyone doing it? Really, they just need reminders. One of the reminders are someone getting cancer, the pandemic. All of a sudden you go, oh my God, life is so precious. What am I doing? Because you already know the concept. You're just reminded of it. But it's temporary. Like you didn't know Monday was coming again. You didn't know traffic sucks. Like you just, it just comes back. So it's very temporary. It fades. So how can we do that? So one of the things we did with the brand was act as a reminder, like, hey, stop complaining about it and live life more. So whenever you do something inspirational, always goes towards mental health. Inspirational motivation almost all the time. We took it a step further and we went to suicide prevention because I actually lost my brother to suicide. One of the biggest things I learned from him, or that incident at least, was that when people get sad or depressed, it is not the situation. It's actually their perspective. That's why rock stars commit suicide. Well, the homeless people you guys are hugging are the ones trying to stay alive. Like, that doesn't make any sense, right? So it's the perspective we needed to change. So one of the things we did with our apparel, even though it's pronounced Phuket, it persuaded people to say fuck it more without being offensive about it, right? So here's why that's really important. All of you and everyone else are exposed to motivational stuff every single day. Facebook videos, Instagram quotes on a daily basis. And if that's the case, why isn't it working? Because they're all meaningless, all of it. The only time they actually become meaningful is when you make a decision about something. That's it. Guess when you say the phrase, fuck it. It's only until after you've already made a decision. That's the only time. The reason you say it is you're confirming to yourself that you're actually going to follow through and commit to the decision you just made. You never back out. And so what that does is like, that mindset is what allows you to quit the job you hate, to change your perspective on the pandemic, to start your own business until you decide nothing happens. And people assume that you need to solve all the problems before you make that decision. It's reversed. Once you make the decision, you figure out the freaking solutions, just like that. But it always takes that. That's why we called our nonprofit Start Day One. You have to start day one. You have to decide. Until you decide, nothing is going to happen. And so when I was talking to my friend about the mission behind the brand, I told him it was something about the past, right? Regrets. And regrets, the solution to regret, by the way, is these are just things that you never forgave yourself for. That's it. That's all they are. They're just personal experiences you never forgave yourself about. That is it. You will not forgive yourself. So that's actually the cure to regret. But anyway, it was something about regret. So I said, live life without regret. And then I said, it was something about taking a risk, like just moving forward. Either way, it's an act of progressing, moving forward. And he said, no, it's accept the challenges. I'm like, why? He said, because the challenges are always being set in front of you, but it's still up to you to accept it or not. And when you actually say, fuck it, that's actually when you accept the challenge. And I'm like, wow, you're right. So that's actually become more like a personal motto now. So any challenge that I see, any regret that I potentially might have, it's like, forgive yourself about those regrets, and then accept the challenges that are worth the risk. Worth the risk, guys, not any risks, it has to be worth it. So yeah, that's kind of my personal, I guess, motto and purpose now.
Mindset shift is huge. I feel like once you have like that mindset shift, if the mindset shift is that, or I guess like answering the question for you, Bambi, about like like what is the underlying purpose all the time? It is always to let people know that there is abundance in this world and there's limitless possibilities. So when you have that mindset shift that there is nothing that you can't attack, that you can't have, and that you have the power to kind of manifest these things, there's nothing that you can't do. There's nothing that you won't try. If it's worth it, right? Like Ricardo said, if it's worth it, there's nothing that you won't try. So it's kind of pulling away that mindset of fear and replacing it with the mindset of faith. That's always my underlying purpose. Mm-hmm.
I really liked what Ricardo had to say. And I have 6 children, and I tell them all the time that each and every one of us have been given unique talents and gifts and treasure. And to just, if we utilize that, then we'll find our purpose. And you can't lose that because it's very unique to each and every one of us. And I think it's so important to identify them, our unique talents and our gifts, and develop that to help others.
And just a quick thing on purpose, by the way. People think purpose kind of just comes out of nowhere. It's actually intentional. It's something that you have to actually figure out. And it's based on your experiences. It's the same thing as passion, same thing as goals. And inspiration definitely kind of helps you develop some things, but it's actually something intentional. You don't just go like, oh, my purpose is going to be this. It just not the work, it just doesn't work that way. It's actually something intentional. What do you want to do? And then you change your perspective on it. If you want to say, I want to help people, like, I think he's gone, but Jake is helping people with, the having babies and stuff like that. He wouldn't have had that purpose had he not have any experience about it at all. Nothing. You don't just go like, you know what, I'm going to help people have babies out of nowhere, right? So it's actually based on your experience. Same thing with passion. Passion just doesn't come out of anywhere. It actually comes afterwards, after the decision. Same thing with confidence. Confidence is not something you just have and then you go do it. It's built based on your experiences. You can never have confidence before the decision's been made. It's like, it just doesn't work. It's always afterwards. And that's kind of like the power of that decision. But remember, so the steps are purpose, perspective, and then the power of the decision. All your decisions will follow that. For that to be a straight line, the perspective have to be in line with your purpose. That's why the purpose is so important, because that's your compass. The perspectives will always shift. Startup entrepreneurs notice, oh my God, I'm going to kill it in this industry, to I'm not going to make it, but same purpose, right? So what kind of, is that a threat or a benefit to your purpose? So you really have to figure it out. And then once you're in line, and then all of a sudden your decisions will follow that again, but it's constantly shifting. And that's what the difference between inspiration and motivation. Inspiration helps you shift your perspective. Motivation is completely useless before that. Completely useless. I cannot motivate you to do anything that you haven't decided to do. Same thing with goals and all that stuff. Like, it has to be after the decision. Once you make that decision, that's when motivation is good. And motivation is completely useless without a goal. So that's really how it works. So it's purpose, inspiration to change your perspective, and then the decision, and then motivation comes here. Motivation never comes beforehand, because you're just wasting your time. That's why it sucks when people get in a bad relationship. Come on, let's go out. Let's do it. You haven't changed their perspective that they just lost the only person that they're ever going to be with forever. Like, that was the one. You haven't changed their perspective on that, so they're going to be sad. Until their mind changes on that, all their decisions will follow. And that's why they become annoying. Same thing with kids when they're like growing up. I've learned that when you motivate them too early, you become annoying. Why? Because it feels like you didn't listen to anything I said at all. So now they avoid you because, well, let me guess, I'm the most beautiful person in the world. Oh, but you're great. You're going to succeed. And they don't want to hear that. And so they actually avoid you and they actually go around. But really what you need to do is listen to them, hug them up and all that stuff. And then you ask them, now what? Because now all the problems are out, but now what means I listen to all your bullshit, like every single part of it. but what are we going to do about that? It turns into a solution mindset. So just a quick thing on that.
Yeah, Ricardo, one of the themes, and you probably heard it, and I said it earlier during the session, is finding joy in the present. And I think that's what you're talking about, is not just moving past it, but sitting in that moment, sitting in discomfort. And I share this with my my older son a bit. You know, he's a teenager, going to be 20, and I tell him that we need to sit in this space, and it might not be comfortable, but there's a lot of learning and there's a lot of releasing of forgiveness and gratefulness. But I want to get back to you talking about passion, and I think Joy also talked about it as, you know, what comes easy to you. And Ricardo, you also said it's experience. Well, I think that you gain experience through the process and the preparation. Like I said, with my son, who spent an hour organizing, and he was so just into the process, into the preparation of having this huge mega Nerf war. Or Dave Chappelle saying that, you know, the beauty's in the intent. It's in the long, long walk to the stage. It's not the stage, although that might be the goal, but it's the long, long walk, the preparation and the experience he's building for himself, because he just loves it so much. And there you find your purpose. So, and then your point about, I love I'll say just do it, as opposed to when you say just do it. There's a great quote by Eleanor Roosevelt. I had to pop it up, but she says, do one thing every day that scares you. And I think that's so good. And I think, you know, to your point about just do it and then figure it out, I think Jake is in the business of basically encouraging everyone, just do it, have babies, and then figure it out later. Because you're not going to be, if you knew how hard it was, you might not have babies. Right, Jake?
Well, I'm in no position to comment on that. I think that for many of us, once we face problems, we can either turn inwards to find the strengths from within ourselves, or we can turn outwards to our loved ones. On the worst case, the internet is asking to help. Okay, who's going to help? And I'm just being, in a sense, so as part of my job is actually to understand my customers, and the overwhelming majority of my customers are women, and I am willingly spending a lot of time reading through many stories that women share about their fertility journey. And it's a very painful journey. A lot of people have to go through. So very often they turn outwards. They are asking in the support groups. They're asking, "What's wrong with me? What's going on? How can I help? I mean, what can I do?" And that's when they get moral support from the outside, people who went or feel similarly the way they did. But what frightens me is they seek medical advices from the internet, and this is scary, because there is a reason why doctors go to school for so many years and doing all those fellowships, residentships, and so far and so forth. And it's scary when people just, because if a drug worked for one woman, there's absolutely zero indication that it may work for another woman. It might be the opposite, it might be very dangerous. So we are really trying kind of our customers to steer in a way, look, moral support, talk to other women, that's great. You have to really understand your health, you have to understand your body. But when it comes to medical advice, please go to the professionals, go to medical professionals and talk to them. And the same, I believe, happens in your profession, Joy, where it's really easy. What are the 5? I mean, you just need to type in Google, and you will see. What are the 5 signs of depression, and you're gonna get the list. And guess what? What's going to be the next articles? Well, 5 best cures against the depression. And what's the number 1? Well, you have to buy that supplement for $19.99. Everything will be cured. So I really hope that as we are in the situation we are, people don't lose the not just the sense of the purpose, is that sometimes the help you have to be able to distinguish hay from the, and I'm not really strong in the English proverbs. You have to distinguish, yes, read on Google what can be done, what are the signs, what's going on, but go to professional, talk to professional, get help from them, and everything should be closed in the loop of yourself. You have to kind of find the strengths from within, from yourself, and push forward and overcome whatever difficulties there are.
I love what you had to say, Jake. I think that we were created to not be alone. We need community, we need help, we need to reach out. And I think taking that, courageous step to just reach out to other people and say, hey, I need help, I'm struggling for whatever reason, I think is huge. And now, I know we're doing it mostly Zoom meetings and stuff, but I think it's so important. And I'm thinking it's super important, especially during this whole crazy election season. I have friends all over the world that are like, hey, what's going on? And it's funny because I'm a nurse and I take care of patients right after surgery. And we have to check for orientation right when they wake up. And I have to ask them, what's your name? What's your date of birth? Where are you at? And who's the president? I'm going to be taking notes tonight when I'm at work and the responses I'm going to get. But anyway,
that's a loaded question.
So loaded. But regardless of who wins the presidency, I think we each have a personal responsibility to demonstrate love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, and self-control, because the Bible says actually against such things there is no law. So there's no law against having these types of qualities and characteristics. And I think that's important for everyone to understand. It doesn't matter which person you voted for. It's just, I don't know. I hope that was encouraging.
Yeah, one of the things, Jake was mentioning about the looking for symptoms and all that stuff. So that's something that's completely reverse of what I believe, something I'm trying to change out there. So what I've seen is that everyone is so concerned about the results rather than the cause. So as entrepreneurs, when you solve problems, you don't look at the result, you look at the cause of what's causing the result. Depression, happiness, all that stuff, like what we talked about, right? They're just results. Like you don't get a case of happiness and go, oh my God, I'm going to think happy for a week now. This is great. Or, oh my God, I just got depression. Well, looks like I'm going to be thinking about bad thoughts for about a month. Like that's not how it works. It's actually when you don't have your sense of purpose, your perspective is mostly what it is. And so what it does, it gives you when you have a bad perspective, that's where it evolves, right? Monday sucks, this work sucks, my relationship, oh my God, this sucks. And all of a sudden, alcoholism, drug abuse, and then suicidal tendencies. That's the very end if you succeed. But it's all one line. People think it's all separate lines. Oh, you're depressed. Oh, your anxiety. Oh, no, they're all the same thing. It's really based on your perspective. So to me, prevention is not waiting for symptoms. I'm pretty sure you don't tell your kids, eat all the sugar you want. I know how to look for symptoms of diabetes. Go ahead. That is not what we do. What we say is, hey, not too much sugar this Halloween. Make sure you exercise, get off that computer and go outside. Like those are preventative. Anything prevention needs a proactive approach, no matter what it is. It's always proactive. Any kind of prevention, obesity, diabetes, things like that. And the only thing you could do is something proactive. So we need to be more proactive. Our theme color is actually teal for our Start Day One, the nonprofit foundation, and also the apparel. The reason for that is teal, it acts as a reminder of what we can give that will help in suicide prevention, mental health issues. It stands for giving your time, effort, attention, and love. And those are the things, kind of like when you guys were hugging someone, you didn't go like, like I wonder, don't wait for them to reach out to you. Don't wait for you to reach to, don't wait, basically. These are the vegetables. These are the things that you do. And, these, like, people are still kind of, when you're in a bad place or a bad state of mind, people tend to hate accountability and love excuses. We all do it. It's never your fault. Oh my God, my employee did it, not me. Like, we always get in that. But then once you get better, all of a sudden, like, well, I guess everything happens for a reason. You only say that when you're in a good place. You never say that when you're in a bad place, and you never tell it to someone. You're like, oh my God, she just broke up with you. Well, everything happens for a reason. You don't do that. Only when they're in a good place now, right? So, and so those are the kind of things. But like what Bambi was saying before, what's funny is if you read this book, Personality is Impermanent, the future self is actually more important than the present self. The way you act presently is how you should act based on your future self. It's actually more effective in any way, every way, shape, or form. It's good to be in the moment, but that's because your future self would want you to be, to take the time. When you see a future version of yourself, you have to see a happy version, right? You're not going to say, oh, I want a successful one, and then rich with no family. Like, that's not going to work. You see a very successful, happy. Well, that happy version of yourself is not going to tell you, like, make sure, do not stop and smell the roses. Just keep on working. That's not how you become happy. So your present self actually acts based on what your future self is going to be. And one of the ways I did this, I was talking to my wife, I'm just like, you know, that whole quantum theory, everything that can happen does happen, right? So I'm like, so wait, let me get this straight. There's a homeless version of myself, and there's this one that killed it and just killed it with my startup, right? So I'm just like, how did that guy do it then? What did he do? So I'm just like, all right, I'm going to do what it takes to be that person. And so everything will follow that. But when you don't have that future version of yourself, your present self is going to have a hard time. I actually just did a talk on Tech Day like a week ago. And he asked me a question about imposter syndrome. All freaking startup founders go through it, right? Like, I don't know what I'm doing here. But when you think of it as your future self, you got to apply what you learn from startups to your personal self also. No one comes up with a startup and goes, this is not even going to make it. Customers are going to hate this. But that's what we tell ourselves for our future self. It's like, oh, I'm not going to make it. This is so not me. Like, you don't do that for your startup. Why would you do it for yourself? The reason startups make it is because they have this vision. So
I know that Joy has, it's already 12:29, but I want to say that my future self always talks to myself now, which usually says, don't have that one extra glass of wine because my future self isn't going to like it in the morning. So that's for sure. I know all about the future self, but I wanted to, and Tammy, you mentioned, you know, we're created for relationships. I also want to share this verse, Ephesians 2:10, for we are his workmanship created in Christ Jesus for good works. So we're also created to create. We're here to create. We're endowed to create. And I want to end with what Joy said, talking about being intentional, smiling, you know, behind the mask, waving maybe these days. What are we all doing to be intentional so we can share our gifts? And I will go around and end with Joy and myself. But since Jake, let's go with you, and we can make this a little bit briefer, but I would love to hear everyone share that. What are you doing to be intentional? Are you smiling at people? Are you starting your day meditating? What is it?
I'm actually trying. So I don't particularly like talk to strangers. But nowadays, yeah, I have even less opportunity of doing that. So I'm kind of forcing myself to have more chit chats when I'm outside and when I'm just running into people. So I would just try to strike the conversation, whether it's a clerk at the coffee shop or is that the cashier at the supermarket. So just to try to talk more to people and maybe crack a joke or two. And there are plenty of subjects right now. I mean, this is just, I mean, the comedians, they gotta love it now. You can joke about everything. So I think that kind of that's my way to kind of like to maintain it. But like you said, right? I mean, if before you couldn't walk in a bank with the mask, now they're gonna let you in. They're not gonna let you in without a mask. So it sucks, but it is what it is. So we got to get over it.
Great. And Tammy. You're muted. There you go. You're still unmuted.
I missed your question. I'm so sorry.
Oh, it's what are we doing to be intentional? Jake is, likes to speak. He's trying to have more conversations, and Joy talked about smiling at others, sharing a smile. What are you doing to be intentional?
Well, there's quite a few things that I do to be intentional. As I mentioned before, I'm a nurse, and I do believe that my purpose is to bring joy to others and to encourage and uplift others. So I do that with my patients after surgery, and then also at the pregnancy center downtown for women who are in crisis situations that are thinking about abortion or just in a really tough situations. I live in downtown, or I live near downtown Las Vegas, and so these women, they a lot of them are homeless or drug addicted or just in really tough situations, sex trafficking, all of that. And so my purpose is just to encourage, uplift, and connect them with resources that can do the same, because I can't stay with each and every one of them the entire time. And I think it's just so important to just pour love onto other people. I do that every day with my 6 kids that I homeschool. And I know that's just my personal intentions and purpose.
And Ricardo, what do you do to be intentional? How do you start your day?
Start the day. Wow. Got to give the wifey some kisses first, right? I don't know. Like I said, you just see this future version of yourself, and everything comes automatically. Because how are you going to be a happy version of yourself? How are you going to be that successful version of yourself? That's what makes you wake up. That's what makes you do the things. And especially with my nonprofit, that forces me to become intentional, to provide teal, to provide the time, effort, attention, love to whoever needs it. So we're always talking to different people, helping. The most important thing is we're just trying to help change people's perspective in some way, shape, or form. So kind of can't help it,
That's great. And Don?
So as a planner, I have a lot of things that are intentional, much to the chagrin of my wife. But the one thing that I think is appreciated by her and people who know me is I'm very intentional every day about listening to the spirit. And what I mean by that is we're all given 24 hours, and during those 24 hours, opportunities arise. And I want to know what I should be doing, using my gifts, my talents in those moments that I'm not looking for, but I want to be aware. So when it does come up, I can then give in some form or fashion. And I don't know what that means each and every day because it changes, but I know that if I'm really focused on listening to what the Spirit's saying, then I'm more aware of my surroundings and the opportunities and the ability to use my gifts, which, as we've all shared, when you use your gifts, the recipient is blessed, but so are you.
Thank you. It's beautiful. And Joy?
I'm unmuted. I got it. What am I doing to live in my intention or to be intentional?
Yeah.
I would say what I'm doing to be intentional is I'm actually trying to be more patient intentionally, because I'm not patient, and give other people space to, I guess, share more of themselves, to show up more as their authentic self. As a therapist, I give a lot of feedback, right? And I have my own perspective, and I want to get out of that with just my regular relationships and not always giving perspective, but allowing other people to just be who they want to be and set their own intentions, and not have the expert always giving them some feedback. So I just want to be more patient and allow space for others.
That's great. Well, I love that. I think we can all sort of, start the day reminding ourselves that we need to be patient, not only with ourselves, but with others. And I think similar to what Don does, this is the way I get intentional. So I start every day with a devotional, and I also spend an hour in worship. And it is tough. I do it when I work out, but it grounds me. And, everybody knows here that I love to say, before you want to go out and change the world, change yourself. So I'm kind of resetting myself every day through that worship time. And I don't know what other people do, maybe through meditation, but that time that you have for yourself to be patient and grounded is the way I can be intentional for that day. So thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for sharing such great stories and great wisdom in this session. And I think a lot of that has to do with Joy's presentation, kicking us off in a very positive way. So I really appreciate, Joy, you taking the time to put that together and driving this conversation. So everyone, have a wonderful day. Remember, you can get a free trial of BetterHelp services. We will send you an email. Our next session is November 19th. Go out there and be intentional, be grateful, be purposeful, remember who your future self is, and be kind to your present self today. So have a great and wonderful day.